Well, hello again. We've got a special treat for you right now. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, partners, we have invited a Chief Information Security Officer to join us for half an hour in an AMA, Ask Me Anything session, to which you have submitted your questions through the app. This gentleman is Jerry Pitman. He is the Chief Information Security Officer of Tenneco, a multinational conglomerate. Jerry's experience has spanned over 30 years in critical infrastructure, transportation, and telecommunications. Please give me a warm family checkpoint welcome to Mr. Jerry Pitman. Jerry, come and join us. Thank you. All right, sir, let's get straight into it. So, in our Q&A, and I need the questions up on the front board here, organizers. Let me look back. Softball question right out the gate. Let's get things started easily.
Let's do it easy.
Jerry, what keeps you awake at night? What are your top concerns as a CISO?
Well, I think myself and guys in this position obviously worry about business disruption. That's one of the keys. I think we all worry about that unwanted Wall Street Journal publicity moment. But I think you can sum a lot of that up. What's driving that is just the changing threat environment we have and the complexity of the systems that we're trying to deal with. Knowing where our data is, knowing who's got it, and is it taking a free trip that you don't know about somewhere. Those are the kind of things that keep us up at night.
All right, good man. Kathy Padaver asks, how often do you meet with vendors and drive technology decisions? Do you enable your team to select technology based on security control requirements?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I will get involved in technology decisions once some of that investigation has been done, once we've qualified the right vendors that have the products or the solutions we're looking for. I really want my team to spend a lot of time doing that because they have the time and the expertise to do it. Things I used to love to do, but I've moved on to helping manage the business and helping with the relationship into the leadership of the organization. So I leave a lot of the early research into that to the folks on the team who really spend a good amount of time doing it and who are very good at it.
So if one of our salespeople calls you up and says, we've got this great technology, if that's the first thing they want to talk about, what is your immediate thought?
I think part of it is driven by the wants and the needs of where you are at any given time. It seems like nowadays that one of those comes in about every 10 or 15 minutes. Pops up an email, phone call, something like that. In some cases, it's folks who I believe probably have a genuine product to talk to you about, but we're just overwhelmed with it. I mean, it comes in. I'm sure everybody in the audience is overwhelmed with it too if you're reading your emails and answering your phones. So I think that's a tough sell right up front. It's even more difficult than it's ever been getting in front of a CISO from a technology standpoint, as opposed to ultimately what they can use to really help the business.
So on first contact, what would you recommend one of our salespeople say to you? Like, what's the first topic of dialogue that you want to have with your vendor rep?
It's really helpful when you hear something from someone who wants to talk to you about how they can help you. Do they understand the business you're in? Do they understand the industry you're in? Have they spent any time qualifying their customer? Do they understand the products and solutions that they have, and how do they fit into the mix of the person they want to talk to? If they're able to come in with that and bring a pitch that speaks more to, we kind of know what's going on in your space, and here's how we might be able to help, those kind of things, it's much easier than saying, hey, we got the greatest widget on the planet, or hey, we got the newest, hottest technology that will do everything you need done, and all you have to do is just give us $1 million and we'll take care of you, kind of thing.
Right. So Matt Garr asks a similar question. What compels you to meet with a new vendor? Is it a recommendation from a peer, your own research? How can a new vendor get on your radar?
Well, that's kind of the $64,000 question in the group, right? If it were that easy, I would have already institutionalized it, and I wouldn't be here. I'd be sitting on a beach somewhere in the Bahamas. It's a lot of hard work. I think from our standpoint, obviously we have peer groups we work with, a lot of folks we talk to who are in the same situation we're all in. We get a lot of good information that way. We like you guys, talk amongst ourselves and really try to figure out who's done what and learn and take advantage of that wherever we can. I think to a certain extent, leveraging other research organizations like, we use the infamous Gartner and some others, has a point to play, particularly when I'm speaking to a leadership team. The second question they ask right after, what are you trying to tell me about, is what are the other groups in the industry doing? What are other companies doing? So you have to do your research in that regard. But I think really it's as much from interacting in industry groups and the folks that we work with, our peers, and those relationships that probably drive it as much as anything.
Good man. And right down to the individual level with Mahesh Naidu asking, can you describe the ideal attributes of a vendor account rep? Characteristics.
I can. There's probably a couple in the audience that I've worked with I could call out for that, but what I'll say is attributes. You have to know your product. You have to know the person you're trying to sell to, your customer. You've got to know what your customer's needs are and how your solution fits into those needs. It's tough. It's a tough job to have. It's a tough business to be in. And you need to have qualified that customer as well as you can, and you need to be perseverant with them. I don't mean drive them crazy, but I do mean you have to really stick with them. You have to develop the relationship over time. That's where the hard part comes in, is developing that relationship and showing that customer that you want to do more than just sell them something. You want to be there in the longer term, and you want to get your skin in the game, and you want to be a partner to that customer. Get him to really understand that you're going to be there for him when he needs you, not just when you need to make a sale or when you want to go to lunch.
And so let's talk about cloud. What are your top 3 concerns when moving your infrastructure to the cloud? What are you doing right now?
Well, who isn't moving to the cloud? I think that gets a bit back to that complexity issue. I think even as much work that's been put into it, there's a lot of non-standardization in the cloud. There's a lot of concern around where that data is going, what's going on with it. You get a lot of variability in cloud vendors and what they're able to show you in terms of their protections, what's happening with your data. Are you able to even see what's going on in that space and understand it? And then the things a lot of our business folks and our vendor folks don't really get, which is how do you get it back? If you want to move, you want to go somewhere else. The real beauty of cloud is not the cost, although that's a big benefit. The real beauty of the cloud is the flexibility it gives you to be able to change your business environment and adapt to the business change. And if you don't have a way of understanding how that vendor provides that stuff to you, you're taking some serious risks.
Right. What are you doing right now in regards to the unknowns within the cloud? I mean, so this thing is where is it going, or it's I know exactly where the traffic is going? Where do you feel right now in regards to your cloud posture? You feel in control? What are you doing about it if you're not?
Well, obviously you've got some large providers in the space, and you've got some really big names to provide cloud services, and then part of that depends on what type of service they're providing. Is it infrastructure? Is it platform? Is it software? Where does it fall in there? And I think a lot of those providers are starting to really figure out what it takes to be able to secure that space and give their customers what they need in terms of protections and assurance that they're going to take care of that information when it's in there. I still think there's a lot of room for improvements. There's a lot of room for increased visibility. I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges we have, is being able to see what's going on and what's being done with the data. If you're an international company and you start thinking about what it takes to respond to, say, GDPR or Privacy Shield, that really raises the bar in terms of what that provider has to give to you for the service, for you to be responsive to the DPA when he calls, wondering why that particular question wasn't answered in the time frame it was supposed to be. So.
Do you have a dedicated team for cloud security, out of interest, in your organization?
Not necessarily dedicated strictly to cloud security, but we have folks who spend probably more time in it than others.
Yeah. So Phone Boy, who's our wizard behind the curtain here, Wizard of Oz, is asking, when choosing a cyber security vendor, how important is their financial stability?
Well, I think that kind of goes without saying. If I'm ultimately going to bring a vendor in, promote this into the leadership of my organization, you've got to have that element of stability in the security space. That's almost always got to be a high road consideration. If you're going to bring on someone that doesn't have the financial stability, you have to account for that. You have to have some sort of compensation to assure yourself that you get the service you need and that they'll be able to be there when you need them. And without financial stability, it's risk injected into the equation that you have to account for.
You know, it's interesting because, you know, we pride ourselves, and I mean, that's a differentiator for us at Checkpoint, right? Very financially stable. We actually don't often hear that kind of answer. Is it perhaps because only CISOs are thinking about this? Like, would you prefer it if our sales and marketing teams came to you and said, okay, we've already spoken to your teams about the technology, right? Now let's just have the financial conversation. Would that be good enough for you? Would that be ideal from your vendor?
I think it's a balanced equation, Eddie. I think it's got to be both. Obviously, I have to bridge that gap between the technology side into the business and leadership side. I have to figure out that language translation between tech speak and business and financial speak. So, and plus, I'm a little selfish about wanting to keep my hand on the technology stuff too, just because that's what I grew up in. But you have to really have a balance in that equation, and at the end of the day, you know, you think about what a CIO wants to know. Well, he already assumes that you've got the technology side covered, or you probably wouldn't be there. So what he's looking for from this guy is, okay, well, where's TCO? What can you tell me about TCO? What are other companies in our space doing? What kind of metrics are they hitting in terms of the financial performance and that stability and all of those questions that they want to ask around benchmarking and so forth.
So the CIO is asking TCO questions to the CISO?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, good man. All right, we've got a question. How much has your organization embraced automation and orchestration as part of your information security program? How has it changed for the better or worse?
That is a very interesting question, and it's driven from maybe some answers we didn't really think about from the beginning. But the thoughts from an automation standpoint are as much around how do I get efficient as how do I improve my posture. And maybe those two are somewhat interchangeable, different sides of the same coin. But we look at what can we drive out of automation and how do we use orchestration to our advantage to improve our performance, improve our financial position, and ultimately try to gain that improvement in security posture. But more times than not, how do I not have to go out and hire a bunch of people that don't exist in my environment using automation to be able to do that?
Right. Do you have any example of automation tools that you might be using that our teams can research and figure out how we plug in and work with them? Like how much background research should we be doing? I mean, you know, come to the table and know about my company and speak with us and be informed about Tenneco in your example. Yep. But you will always know more. How much of that research should we be doing?
Well, I think it's really critical, not just from an immediate standpoint and from a tactical standpoint, but I think from a strategic standpoint, knowing how to position the message, how to position that story, and then how to deliver across those various elements of that value chain to tell the story and get the attention of that guy who has to sign those checks. And it's not just me signing the checks. Obviously, I'm in the approval cycle of it, but it's also the guy above me and the guy above him. If it's something that I believe in and that I know we need to have, whether it's automation, orchestration, or even basic protection features, then I have to be given the weapons, if you will, to go tell that story the right way and make that sale. And oftentimes I'm put in that position of where I have to go sell upstairs to my leadership team, just like anyone coming in from the outside would be trying to sell to my team.
And are you doing that selling to your own board of directors? Is that how far you go as a CISO now? Are you speaking with them on a quarterly basis?
We talk to the board of directors, but if you're talking about internal board of directors, there's a little bit of that in there. The selling really has to do more with getting them to really understand the threat environment and what's going on, what you're trying to do from delivering that security and protection of the company, keeping them off the Wall Street Journal and keeping them out of pinstripes kind of thing. A lot of those details kind of get worked out in the earlier stages. If you're spending a lot of time talking that level of detail at the board of director level, then you probably missed something somewhere.
How can our sales teams help prepare you for that dialogue at the board of directors? And Damien, next question as we're answering. Good man.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good question. I think it's really important. And again, knowing what your customer's going through, understanding his environment, understanding what he's looking for, getting him in the information he needs. Let me throw an example out. So there's a lot of talk around how products integrate into, I'm going to use the Microsoft Office 365 environment. I mean, virtually everybody out there is in it in some way, shape, or form. So one of the things we always think about is how do the products that I'm looking at and evaluating from a security standpoint line up against that? How do they integrate? How do I share information? How do I automate and orchestrate across those? That's a good example of when you come in to help that customer, you kind of lay some of these things out for him and give him that vision you have of how those things work together. Saves his team and him the time having to sit down and get all the pieces and arrange them and organize them and fit them all together to tell that story. They've already got that part. They can move on to some more important things. Those are the kind of things you think about when you want to ultimately position that solution you're trying to get in there to move it forward, is save these guys that time, because everything we're doing is time-based. And the more time it takes us to do it, the less likelihood you're going to be successful with it.
Good man. Now, we're very, very proud of our management system at Checkpoint. We're light years ahead and always have been of our competitors. So Rich Morganti asks, as a company, we talk about managing your security infrastructure from a single pane of glass. How important is that to you? The big promise, the big single pane of glass, Jerry.
Yeah, we used to talk about the God box and managing everything from the single pane of glass. I've been in networking as well as security, and we've tried to do that for years, get to that single pane of glass. In some cases, have had some pretty good success. Is it a target to try to get to? Absolutely. The less time I have to spend managing disparate systems, putting time into having to learn those, the better it is. I think reality sort of dictates that right now, that you're going to have some of that going on. But again, that's a target, and that's a big that would be a big selling feature to me, or I'm sure a lot of my peers, in terms of not having to have the overhead to support multiple technologies that you have to manage.
Right, exactly. Next question, phone boy. So we've got here, what is something you wish more vendors would do? Great open-ended question.
Well, that's pretty low.
Oh, give it to us. It's all right. Whatever made you smile just now, that's the one that you should go with.
Yeah, that's a pretty loaded question. I think the easy answer is the things we've been talking about, the things that you've heard, the things I've said. I think what I personally would like to see vendors spend a little more time doing is working out the details of how they orchestrate and how they work better together, how they integrate better together. I think one of the things that's always been on my radar to see in the industry is rights management. I'm a big rights management proponent, simply because at some point in time you have to have a perimeter in place to keep the good guys honest, but because the perimeter is really being marginalized in terms of data and how it's used and how it's being spread out there, you have to be able to do more than that. And I think rights management is a good way to do that. Unfortunately, the industry and vendors haven't gotten together to give us a common standard for that, to be able to utilize that, and all products can interoperate, work together, and then we can move that whole space forward, protect that part of our environment as well. So that's just an example of one of the things that would be good to see more work being put into.
So as a customer, you've sat through a vendor session here this morning where we're talking about competitive intelligence, all these kinds of things. You've also seen that we tend to pour a lot of our resources into R&D. A large portion of our staff members are scientists, researchers, engineers, less money in marketing. And you saw a little bit of fun and contention about that today. What do you think as a customer? I mean, what do you think about the Checkpoint brand? What do you think about our engineering standards, and comparing that to the big splash we've seen from the Barracudas of the world?
Well, I mentioned I came up in the technology space and have been a technologist for quite a while, and so I can appreciate and respect the amount of work and effort that Checkpoint puts into that side of the house. I think it speaks in the products that are delivered, it speaks in the capabilities that are delivered, and I've had some really good account reps in the past who have been able to take that technology and put it together with a really good way of getting into us at the time as a customer. And I've been dealing with Checkpoint for more than 15, 20 years, and always had tremendous luck with them, and have appreciated the fact that, number one, you guys take the high road. You don't cut corners when it comes to protecting protecting customers. You take care of those customers, and the products you deliver work. I think that's very important and shouldn't be understated by any means. So it means a lot to me, and that's why I'm standing on the stage today.
All right. As a closing question, we have 1 minute left. Okay. How about your team members? You're a leader in cybersecurity. What are you telling your team members are the top things they need to do to keep your organization secure? Like, if you could name the top 3 things that we need to do, and we do them consistently every day, we're in good shape at Tenneco. What might that be?
Yeah, I think number one, you've got to be able to respond to things. You've got to have a plan for how you respond to events or incidents that occur. You've got to make visible what's going on in the environment. I hammer my guys all the time in a good way around metrics and reporting on what's going on. That is really the story that I have to take upstairs to the leadership team in the company and explain to them what's going on, is taking measurements, metrics, and reporting, converting it into a language that can be consumed upstairs, and then telling the story. That's how you get funding. That's how I make the progress I make in terms of the things that we do. I think the last thing is, again, it's really discipline and perseverance, and being there to deliver that consistently, and making sure that you know your products that you're dealing with, you know your vendors very well. You have that long-term relationship that you can call them and get them involved and deliver as a team to ensure that you're protecting what you're supposed to be protecting.
Good man. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, partners, please thank Jerry Pitman for taking a few days out of his schedule to come and speak with us today. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
All right, good luck, everybody.
Thank you.